She walked into the busy diner just as the lunchtime rush was about to start, balancing on a worn-out cane that seemed barely able to hold her up. Every step was a struggle, her face a mix of determination and exhaustion. This wasn't just any waitress. She was a woman fighting every day to keep her job, despite the challenges her disability threw at her. The clatter of plates, the chatter of customers, and the pressure to move fast in a place where seconds counted were all part of her reality. Yet, no one could have guessed that today, her life was about to change in a way she never expected. For years, she had shown up to work, ready to serve with a smile, hiding the pain and the fatigue beneath a brave exterior. Her cane wasn't just a tool, it was a symbol of everything she was overcoming. Customers might see her as just another waitress, but those who knew her understood the strength it took to keep going. She struggled with every order, every step, but refused to give up. It wasn't just about earning a paycheck, it was about proving to herself and the world that her disability didn't define her. That day, among the crowd of diners was someone different, someone nobody noticed at first glance. An undercover CEO, visiting the diner not for the food, but to see how things really worked at the ground level of his business. He wasn't there to sit back and watch. He wanted to see the heart of his company, the people behind the counters who made everything run. What he saw in that struggling waitress touched him deeply. It wasn't just her physical challenges, it was her spirit, her relentless will to keep moving forward no matter what. As the lunch rush grew louder and the pressure mounted, the CEO watched quietly from the corner, feeling something shift inside him. This wasn't just another story of hardship, it was a story of courage, resilience, and hope. But would that hope be enough to change her life? Could this chance encounter turn into something bigger? The answers weren't clear yet, and the next moments would hold a surprise that neither of them saw coming. What happened next could rewrite everything for the poor disabled waitress who had been struggling to keep her dream alive. But for now, she was just fighting to make it through the day, one shaky step at a time, unaware that her story was about to take a powerful turn. The waitress's name was Maria, a woman in her early 30s with eyes that carried the weight of years spent fighting against odds most people never noticed. She hadn't always needed a cane. A few years ago, life had taken a sudden turn when a medical condition left her with limited mobility. Doctors told her she might never walk properly again, but Maria refused to accept that. She pushed herself, going through therapy and countless setbacks, all while trying to keep her job and maintain a sense of normalcy. Her job at the diner wasn't easy. Long hours on her feet, rushing back and forth to take orders and carry trays, sometimes even managing tables without help. The other waitresses sympathized, but the pace never slowed down for her. Customers often didn't understand her slow steps or occasional winces of pain. Some would grow impatient, but Maria had learned to smile through it all. This job was more than just work. It was her way to prove she was still capable, still valuable. The diner itself was a modest place, tucked away on a busy street where regulars stopped by for quick meals and familiar faces. The walls were lined with old photos of the neighborhood, giving the place a sense of history and warmth. But behind the cheerful chatter and clinking dishes, there was always a rush, a demand to keep things moving smoothly. Maria felt that pressure every day, but today it felt heavier, almost unbearable. Meanwhile, the CEO, James, sat quietly, observing everything. He wasn't just any businessman. He had built his company from scratch, starting with a simple idea and growing it into something big. Yet, he had never forgotten what it felt like to work on the front lines, to face the tough realities his employees dealt with daily. That was why he decided to go undercover, to see beyond the reports and spreadsheets. What he found shocked him more than he expected. Maria's struggle was visible, but it was her attitude that caught his attention. Despite the pain and difficulty, she kept serving with care, greeting customers with kindness, and never letting her disability stop her from doing her best. James wondered why no one had offered her more support or accommodations. He could see the cracks beneath the surface, tired hands, slow steps, and a quiet hope that maybe things could be better. But there was more to Maria's story. She wasn't just battling physical challenges, she was fighting for something deeper. A dream she had kept close to her heart, one that went far beyond the diner. And as James watched her carefully, he sensed that this meeting was no accident. Something was about to happen, something that could change both their lives forever. Yet, neither of them knew what that something was, only that the moment had arrived. The tension in the air was thick, and the next few minutes would hold the key to what came next. Would Maria's perseverance finally get noticed in the way she deserved? Or was this just the beginning of a tougher battle? The answers were waiting just beyond the horizon, ready to unfold. Maria wiped sweat from her brow as another tray slid from her hands, nearly tipping over. Her cane clattered against the floor, drawing a few impatient glances. The diner's pace showed no mercy, and every minute felt like a test of her limits. Behind the counter, the manager called out orders faster than she could keep up, and Maria's legs trembled with the effort. The pain was a constant companion, but she pushed it aside. This was her job, her lifeline. Meanwhile, James sat quietly, his gaze fixed on her. He noticed how Maria's co-workers often glanced her way, some with sympathy, others with frustration. He overheard snippets of conversations, complaints about slow service, worries about keeping the business running smoothly. It was clear the staff was stretched thin, and Maria's condition, while respected, was also a source of tension. Some wondered if she was holding the team back. Others quietly admired her grit. But James's thoughts weren't just about efficiency. He was thinking about what this place really needed. How often did he miss these human stories buried beneath the numbers? Maria wasn't just a slow waitress. She was someone with dreams and struggles, with a life that deserved more than just passing judgment. The deeper he looked, the more he realized the diner wasn't just a business. It was a community trying to survive in a tough world. Maria's struggle wasn't only physical. She lived in a small apartment a few blocks away, barely making ends meet. Her medical bills piled up, and her shifts were often doubled because she had no choice but to work as much as possible. She dreamed of a life where she wouldn't have to worry about every penny, where her disability wouldn't be a constant barrier. But those dreams felt distant. Every day was a fight, not just to serve food, but to keep hope alive. In the background, there was another tension brewing. The diner's owner had been considering some changes, maybe cutting staff, maybe even selling the place. The workers whispered about layoffs and uncertain futures. For Maria, that meant not just losing a job, but losing the fragile stability she clawed for. For James, it meant a chance to decide what kind of leader he wanted to be. Would he just watch from the sidelines or step in? As the lunch crowd thickened, Maria's hands shook. She spilled a cup of coffee, and a frustrated customer snapped. Her heart sank, but she swallowed her pride and apologized with a quiet smile. James saw it all, the struggle, the resilience, the loneliness behind the forced cheer. Something inside him stirred, a question of what responsibility he had to people like Maria. But before he could act, the day took an unexpected turn. A sudden incident in the diner left everyone stunned, and all eyes turned toward Maria. What happened next would change everything, but the answer was still out of reach. The diner was buzzing, louder than ever, with the lunch crowd filling every booth and stool. Maria's legs felt like lead, and her breath came in short bursts. She balanced the tray in one hand, her cane tapping nervously against the floor with every step. The pressure was mounting. Orders were flying in faster than she could carry them, and the eyes of both customers and co-workers were on her, some impatient, some worried. The weight of her disability felt heavier than usual today, as if it was trying to break through her determination. James watched from his corner booth, sensing the growing strain. He saw how Maria flinched when a customer snapped for their delayed order, how she quietly apologized and moved on, never letting herself show the full extent of her pain. His heart tightened. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about people's lives, about dignity and respect. Yet, the tension inside the diner kept building, like a storm ready to burst. Suddenly, A loud crash echoed from the kitchen. The room went silent for a split second before the manager shouted for calm. Maria froze mid-step, the tray trembling in her hand. Her cane slipped, and she stumbled, barely catching herself before hitting the floor. The diner's noise turned into gasps and murmurs. James rose slowly, his eyes locked on Maria as she steadied herself, cheeks flushed with embarrassment and frustration. But then something unexpected happened. A customer at the counter shouted angrily, blaming the slow service on her disability. The words cut through the room like a knife. Maria's smile faltered, replaced by a look of pain, not just physical, but the deep ache of feeling judged and misunderstood. Her co-workers exchanged uncomfortable glances, some wanting to defend her, others unsure how to react. James felt a fire ignite inside him. This wasn't just a moment of struggle, it was a moment of injustice. Yet, he remained silent for now, watching how Maria handled the pressure. She took a deep breath and, with shaking hands, started to serve the next table. But the incident had shaken the entire diner. The air was thick with tension, and something had changed. Maria's usual quiet strength was now laced with visible doubt. Behind the scenes, the owner's plans to cut costs and possibly shut down the diner were inching closer. The staff whispered nervously, and Maria's fragile hope for stability was slipping away. James realized that this day might be the tipping point, not just for Maria, but for everyone involved. As the lunch rush began to slow, Maria's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced down, her heart skipping a beat. It was a message from her doctor, news she had been waiting for, but dreaded. At the same time, James was making a decision about whether to step forward and reveal himself as the CEO, to intervene in a way no one expected. The diner held its breath, caught in the balance between despair and hope. The moment was fragile, the outcome uncertain. What would happen next? Would Maria's courage be enough to change her fate? And could James's silent resolve turn into the help she so desperately needed? The answers hung just out of reach, waiting to be revealed in the moments ahead. Maria's hands trembled as she unlocked her phone, the message from her doctor glowing on the screen. Her eyes scanned the words quickly, her breath catching in her throat. The test results weren't what she'd hoped for. The condition she had been managing was worsening faster than expected. Suddenly, the weight of every step she had taken felt even heavier. This wasn't just about getting through one shift anymore, it was about a future she wasn't sure she had. Before she could process the news, the diner door swung open abruptly. A group of inspectors stepped inside, clipboard in hand, their expressions serious. The manager's face tightened as he recognized them. Rumors about health inspections had been circulating, but no one was prepared for this sudden visit. The inspectors began moving through the diner, checking the kitchen, the storage, and the dining area with sharp eyes. Maria felt the room close in on her. The timing couldn't have been worse. If the diner failed the inspection, it could mean fines, closures, or worse, job losses. She glanced nervously at James, who had been watching quietly, but now stood alert, his calm exterior shifting. This wasn't just a personal struggle anymore, it was becoming a crisis that could affect everyone. The tension inside the diner grew thick. Customers whispered among themselves, sensing something was wrong. Maria's co-workers exchanged worried looks, their own fears bubbling to the surface. The fragile balance of the diner's survival was tipping fast, and Maria's own health crisis was just one part of a much bigger storm. James stepped forward, identifying himself as the owner's representative. His voice was steady but firm as he began to negotiate with the inspectors, trying to buy time and protect the staff. His presence surprised everyone, including Maria. She realized this stranger had more influence than she had imagined. But even with James' intervention, the inspection revealed issues that couldn't be ignored. The diner was flagged for several violations, and the future of the place, and Maria's job, was in serious jeopardy. On top of this, Maria received another call, this time from her landlord. Rent was overdue, and unless she could pay immediately, she risked losing her apartment. The pressure was crushing, and for the first time, Maria's tough exterior cracked. Tears welled up in her eyes as she clutched her cane, feeling the weight of the world bearing down. James noticed her distress and approached cautiously. This was more than just business now, it was personal. He was torn between stepping in to help and respecting her independence. The stakes had never been higher. The diner was on the edge of collapse. Maria was facing a health battle she hadn't fully shared, and the life she fought to keep was slipping through her fingers. As the day closed, the diner emptied, but the heavy silence left no relief. Both Maria and James were left with questions. How far would each go to save this place? Could hope still survive amid such overwhelming odds? And what secret decisions lay ahead that could change everything? The story was far from over, and the next moves would define their futures. The next morning, the diner was quiet. Too quiet. Maria stood at the entrance, staring at the closed for maintenance sign taped to the door. Her heart sank. After everything, it felt like the end. She had barely slept, her mind spinning between the bad news from the doctor, the looming eviction, and the thought that the diner, her only source of income, might never open again. She turned to leave, her cane tapping slowly on the pavement, when a black SUV pulled into the lot. The door opened, and James stepped out, not as a customer, not undercover, but fully himself. He walked toward her with purpose. "Maria," he said softly, "I think it's time you knew who I really am." Her eyes widened as he explained everything, his identity, his role, and why he had been watching from the shadows. At first, Maria didn't know what to say. It all felt surreal. Then came the shock. James had not only taken ownership of the diner from the retiring boss the night before, but he had decided to renovate it completely. He told Maria he wanted her to stay, not just as a waitress, but as the new floor manager, someone who would help shape the future of the place. The news hit her like a wave. All her struggles, all the pain hadn't gone unnoticed. Someone had finally seen her. Tears filled Maria's eyes, but this time they weren't from fear. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen and valued. James handed her a check, not a handout, but a bonus to help with her rent and medical care. She tried to refuse, but he stopped her. "You've earned this 100 times over," he said. "Let me do this." Just as Maria felt the first flicker of hope return, James's phone buzzed. He answered, his expression shifting from relief to confusion. "What do you mean she's sold it?" he said, stepping away. Maria watched, confused. Moments later, James returned, visibly shaken. "The previous owner. She sold the building this morning without telling me. I own the diner, but not the property." Maria felt the ground shift beneath her. After all the promises, all the hope, everything was still at risk. A new developer was planning to tear down the building within weeks. The good news had barely landed before another storm rolled in. James clenched his jaw, already planning his next move. "This isn't over," he said, and Maria, standing a little taller now, nodded. She wasn't giving up, not this time. Together, they were ready to fight, not just for the diner, but for every person like her who deserved to be seen. The battle was far from finished, but now she wasn't alone. Over the next few days, the energy around the diner changed completely. James and Maria didn't waste a minute. They met with lawyers, contacted city officials, and even organized a small community gathering right in the parking lot. Word spread fast. Customers, neighbors, and even former employees came to show support. Many had known Maria for years, and now that her story was out in the open, people wanted to help however they could. It wasn't just about saving a business. It was about standing up for someone who had always put others first. James used his influence to start negotiating with the new property developer. It wasn't easy. The developer had plans to tear the building down for a strip mall, and money was clearly the driving force behind it. But James had something stronger: community backing, media attention, and a personal drive to do what was right. He made calls, pulled strings, and after several intense meetings, an agreement was finally reached. The diner would stay. The developer agreed to lease the space to James long-term, as long as he renovated and improved the property. With the deal secured, the diner underwent a full makeover. The walls were repainted, the kitchen upgraded, and the atmosphere transformed, but the heart of it remained the same. Maria, now floor manager, helped lead a team that truly respected her. With the weight of uncertainty lifted, she could finally focus on her health and future with a new kind of hope. James, still undercover in many ways, continued visiting often, not just to oversee things, but because he had grown genuinely connected to the people, especially Maria. He admired her resilience, and their bond deepened into something stronger than just business. While nothing was rushed, there was an unspoken understanding between them. Sometimes, the best partnerships come from the most unexpected places. Maria also started a small support group for others dealing with disabilities, offering encouragement and sharing her story. What once felt like a burden had now become a source of inspiration. She often reminded others that your struggles don't define you, but your strength does. The diner, once just a place to grab coffee and a meal, had become a symbol of second chances. For Maria, it was proof that pain didn't mean the end. And for James, it reminded him why real leadership means more than titles. It means listening, acting, and caring when no one's watching. As the last customers left one evening and Maria turned the lights off, she looked around the place she had almost lost. A quiet smile spread across her face. It had all started with a cane, a struggle, and a silent observer. But now it ended with hope, purpose, and the kind of change that lasts.